She was dared to kiss a stranger in the club. She didn't know he was a Korean Mafia boss. The bass hit like a physical force, vibrating through the soles of my heels and into my bones. Neon lights sliced through the smoke-filled air of Club Exodus, Seoul's most exclusive nightclub, painting everything in shades of electric blue and violent pink. I pressed my back against the cold glass railing of the VIP section, watching bodies move like a single organism on the dance floor below. 23 years old, and I still felt like an anthropologist studying a foreign species whenever my friends dragged me to places like this. "You're doing it again," Mina shouted over the pulsing EDM, pressing a shot glass into my hand. Her perfectly applied red lipstick gleamed under the strobing lights. "That thing where you look like you're taking notes for a research paper instead of having fun." I looked down at the amber liquid, then back at her. "I am having fun." Liar. Jiwon materialized on my other side, her black hair catching the light like silk. "You've been standing here for 40 minutes. You haven't danced once. You checked your phone 6 times. This is your idea of fun." "I'm observing. It's still participation." "It's boring," Soojin announced, stumbling over with Hana attached to her arm. Both of them were flushed with alcohol and something I couldn't name. Freedom, maybe. The kind that came from not having every moment of your life planned by parents who saw you as an investment rather than a person. "We didn't bring you out for your birthday to watch you be boring, Yuna." I winced at the use of my Korean name. My parents only called me that when they were disappointed, which was often. The rest of the time, I was just the daughter, as in, the daughter will study medicine, or the daughter will marry well, or the daughter will not embarrass us. "Truth or dare," Hana said, her eyes fever bright. "And if you say truth, we're going to be very disappointed in you." My stomach tightened. I'd grown up as the good daughter of a prominent Seoul family. My father was a successful pharmaceutical executive, my mother a former beauty queen turned socialite. They'd given me everything except the freedom to choose my own life. 23 years of the best schools, the best clothes, the best careful cultivation of a perfect daughter they could display like a trophy, and I was so tired. Tired of being perfect, tired of being careful, tired of watching life happen to everyone else while I stood behind bulletproof glass. "Dare," I heard myself say. Mina squealed, actually squealed, and I wondered what I'd just unleashed. Soojin's gaze swept the club with predatory precision. The VIP section where we stood was elevated, separated from the main floor by velvet ropes and security guards who looked like they ate smaller security guards for breakfast. Below us, Korea's elite played at being normal. Chaebol's children, K-pop idols' friends, people whose family names opened doors and closed mouths. But above us, in the private booths that required more than money to access, sat the real power. The people who made the rules, everyone else followed. "Him," Soojin said, and something in her voice made my skin prickle. I followed her pointing finger to the highest level, where shadows gathered despite the club's aggressive lighting. A private booth, glass walls tinted so dark I could barely make out the figures inside. But I could see him. He sat utterly still while chaos swirled around him like the eye of a hurricane. Even from this distance, even through the tinted glass and smoke and crowd, I could feel his presence. Dark hair styled with precise casualness, a sharp jawline that caught the occasional flash of light, a black suit that probably cost more than my university tuition, and an aura of absolute control that made everyone else in the club look like children playing dress-up. 3 men flanked him, standing rather than sitting. Their eyes constantly scanned the crowd with the focused intensity of trained predators, not bodyguards, something more dangerous. "You want me to go talk to him?" I asked, my voice smaller than intended. "Talk?" Jiwon laughed high and sharp. "No, sweetie, we want you to kiss him." The world tilted. "That's insane." "That's the point," Mina said, but her voice was gentler now. "Yuna, when was the last time you did something reckless, something that wasn't planned or approved or carefully risk-assessed?" Never. The answer was never. because my parents had made it clear that recklessness was for people who could afford mistakes, and we couldn't. One wrong move, one scandal, one moment of genuine humanity could destroy everything they'd built. "What if he says no?" I asked. "What if security throws me out? What if you finally do something for yourself instead of for your parents?" Hannah interrupted. "What if you stop being invisible for just one night?" The words hit like a slap. Invisible. That's exactly what I was. I'd spent so long trying not to make waves, not to cause problems, not to be noticed that I'd become a ghost in my own life. I looked back at the dark booth, at the man who sat like a king in his court. Every instinct I'd developed over 23 years of careful living screamed at me to refuse, to laugh it off, to be sensible. Instead, I downed the shot Mina had given me, felt the burn trace fire down my throat, and said, "Fine, but if I get arrested, you're all bailing me out." The walk to his booth felt like miles. I was hyper-aware of everything. The sticky floor beneath my heels, the way conversations seemed to pause as I passed, the thundering of my own heart. I'd been trained since childhood to read rooms, to identify threats, to calculate exit strategies. It was what happened when your father was powerful enough to have enemies. And every instinct I had was screaming that this man was dangerous. The security guard at the base of the stairs to the private level looked at me like I was a child who'd wandered away from her parents. He was massive, with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow and eyes that had seen violence and chosen to embrace it. He said, "This area is restricted." "I need to deliver a message," I said in Korean, then switched to English, gambling that this place catered to international clients. "For the gentleman in the corner booth." His expression didn't change, but he touched his earpiece, spoke too quietly for me to hear. After a pause that stretched my nerves to breaking, he unclipped the velvet rope. "Make it quick." The private level was different, quieter, somehow insulated from the chaos below. The carpet was thicker here, muffling sound. The lighting was softer, amber instead of neon assault. And with each step closer to that corner booth, the air seemed to grow heavier, charged with something I couldn't name. I could see him clearly now, mid-30s maybe, features that were striking rather than conventionally handsome, sharp cheekbones, a nose that looked like it had been broken at least once, a mouth that suggested smiles were rare and hard-earned. His skin was pale against his black suit, like he didn't see sunlight often, or chose not to. But it was his eyes that stopped me cold. Dark, almost black, they tracked my approach with the focused intensity of a predator, deciding whether something was prey or threat. He didn't move, didn't speak, just watched as I closed the distance between us. His men tensed, hands moving inside their jackets, but he raised one finger, barely a movement, and they froze. "Jogyo," I started in Korean, then my prepared speech died in my throat. Up close, he was devastating. Not beautiful, too dangerous for that, but compelling in a way that made my mouth go dry and my carefully planned words scatter like leaves. "You're lost," he said in Korean, his voice low and precise. Not a question, a statement. Then switching to perfect English with barely an accent, "Or you're here on a dare." My eyes widened. "How did you—" "Your friends." He gestured slightly toward where Mina and the others were watching like this was a sporting event. "They've been watching you walk over here like it's the bravest thing you've ever done. And you have that look, the one people get when they're doing something they've been dared to do." Heat flooded my face. So much for mysterious and alluring. Is it that obvious? Only to people who pay attention. He studied me for another long moment, and I had the unsettling sensation of being read, of having pages turned I didn't know existed. What was the dare? I could lie, should lie, but something about his directness made dishonesty feel pointless. "To kiss you." His expression didn't change, but something flickered in those dark eyes. Surprise, maybe, or calculation. "You could just tell them you did it." I could, I agreed, surprised by my own boldness. "But I don't lie to my friends." "Admirable." He tilted his head slightly, considering. "Most people lie constantly. To themselves, mostly. Are you going to do it?" The question hung between us, heavy with possibility. This was the moment to back out, to laugh it off, to add this to the long list of times I'd chosen safe over sorry. But God, I was so tired of being safe. "Yes," I said, "if you'll let me." He was quiet for 3 heartbeats. 4. I was about to apologize, to retreat, when he said, "1 kiss. Then you walk away and don't look back." It should have been a warning. Later, I would realize it was. I stepped closer, close enough to smell him. Expensive cologne with notes of bergamot and something darker underneath, leather and smoke and danger. My hands trembled as I reached up, steadying myself with one palm against his chest, solid, warm, his heartbeat steady under my fingers, much calmer than my own rabbit pulse. "You're nervous," he observed. But he didn't move away. One of his hands came up, fingers curling gently around my wrist, not restraining, just holding. "Terrified," I admitted. "Then why are you doing this?" "Because I'm tired of being afraid, because I want one moment that's mine, because I'm so lonely I could scream." But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I rose on my toes and kissed him. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. His lips were still against mine, his body rigid. I thought, "Oh God, I've made a terrible mistake." Then he kissed me back. It wasn't gentle. His hand slid from my wrist to the back of my neck, fingers threading through my hair, controlling the angle. His other hand settled on my waist, pulling me closer. His mouth moved over mine with the kind of certainty that suggested he always knew exactly what he wanted. The kiss was consuming, demanding. It tasted like whiskey and something indefinably him. I gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until I forgot where we were. Forgot the dare. Forgot my friends. Forgot everything except the electric sensation of being this close to something dangerous. His thumb traced circles against my neck, possessive and gentle at once. Heat flooded through me, pooling low in my stomach. When he finally pulled back, I was dizzy, my lips swollen, my breathing ragged. His eyes had darkened further, heat replacing calculation. "What's your name?" he asked, his voice rougher now. "Yuna." It came out as a whisper. "Yuna Park," he repeated in Korean, tasting each syllable. Then, in English, "I'm Minjun Kang." The name meant nothing to me. Should it have? Something in his expression suggested recognition was expected. "I should go," I said, though I didn't move. "My friends are waiting." "Yes," but his hand was still on my waist, warm through the thin fabric of my dress. "Go back to your friends, Yuna Park. Forget this happened. Will you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. "Forget?" His eyes met mine, and something passed between us. Recognition, maybe, or acknowledgement of something neither of us was ready to name. "No," he said simply. "I don't think I will." Then he released me, and I stumbled back, my legs unsteady. I turned and walked away, very aware of his gaze following me. My friends were screaming, jumping, pulling at me before I even reached them. "Oh my God, you actually did it!" "Did you see his face?" "Who is he?" I barely heard them. I looked back once, couldn't help myself. Minjun was still watching, his expression unreadable. He raised 2 fingers to his lips, a claiming gesture, or maybe a promise. Then his attention shifted to one of his men who'd leaned in to whisper something urgent. We left the club shortly after, my friends bubbling with excitement, already constructing the mythology of the moment. But I was quiet, replaying those few minutes in my mind like a film I couldn't quite believe I'd starred in. My phone buzzed as we climbed into a taxi. An unknown number. "You dropped something. I'd like to return it. The cafe across from Gyeongbokgung Palace. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Don't bring your friends. MK. I checked my purse. Everything was there. He was lying, creating an excuse to see me again. I should ignore it, should delete the message and forget this ever happened. Instead, I saved his number and fell asleep with my fingers pressed to my lips, still tasting whiskey and danger. I didn't sleep. How could I, when every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face, those dark, bottomless eyes that had looked at me like I was something to be studied, understood, possibly kept. Morning came too slowly and too fast. I had classes. I was a graduate student in art history at Seoul National University, working toward a degree I didn't want in a field my parents had chosen because it was appropriate for a woman of your standing. But I couldn't focus. My professor's lecture on Joseon Dynasty ceramics became white noise. My notes devolved into absent-minded sketches of a man's jawline, the curve of a hand, fingers that had tangled in my hair. At 2:30 p.m., I stood in front of my closet in my small apartment, the one concession to independence my parents had allowed, though they paid the rent and had a key they used liberally. I pulled out and rejected 5 different outfits before settling on something casual but careful. Black jeans, a soft cream sweater, minimal makeup. Like I wasn't trying. Like this was accidental. The cafe he'd chosen was in Bukchon Hanok Village, nestled between traditional Korean houses that had been converted into galleries and tea rooms. Tourists crowded the narrow streets, taking photos of the contrast between ancient architecture and the modern city rising behind it. It was public, visible, safe. So why did my hands shake as I pushed open the cafe door? He was already there, sitting in the back corner with a clear view of the entrance. No bodyguards visible, but I'd bet money they were close. He'd traded his club suit for something slightly less formal. Black jeans, a dark gray sweater, a leather jacket draped over the chair beside him. He looked younger like this, almost approachable. Almost. "You came," he said as I approached, standing in that old-fashioned gesture that shouldn't have made my heart skip. "I wasn't certain you would." I'm curious what I supposedly dropped. I slid into the seat across from him, accepting the Americano he'd already ordered. He'd remembered, or guessed right. "Your composure," he said, his mouth quirking. "Last night, for approximately 4 minutes, you forgot to be careful. I thought you might want it back." Despite everything, I laughed. "That's terrible." "It was. I apologize." But he was almost smiling, and the expression transformed his face, made him look less like a predator and more like a person. "The truth is, I wanted to see you again, and I didn't think you'd respond if I simply asked." "So you lied." "I created an opportunity for us both to choose." "That's a very diplomatic way of saying you manipulated the situation." "Yes." No defensiveness, no justification, just acknowledgement. "I did. Are you angry?" I should have been. Should have walked out. Instead, I took a sip of coffee and said, "I'm here, aren't I?" We talked for 3 hours. The conversation ranged from superficial to substantial and back again. Movies, music, the differences between Korean and American culture. He'd lived in Los Angeles for several years, he mentioned casually. Books, art, the 1,000 small details that construct a life. He asked about my studies, and I gave him the official version. Art history, focusing on contemporary Korean artists, hoping to work in museum curation. I didn't tell him that I wanted to paint, that I had canvases hidden in my closet that my parents would burn if they found them, that my real dream was to create rather than catalog. But somehow he knew anyway. "You're lying," he said gently, midway through my carefully rehearsed explanation of my thesis. "Not completely, but you're giving me the version you've practiced for parents and professors. What do you actually want?" The directness should have put me on guard. Instead, it cracked something open. "I want to paint," I admitted. "I want to create things that make people feel something, even if it's uncomfortable. I want to stop being the perfect daughter and become whoever I actually am underneath all the expectations." "Then why don't you?" because disappointing my parents would kill me. Not metaphorically. They've invested everything in me being exactly what they want. If I deviate from the plan, I stopped, realizing I was saying too much to someone I'd just met. But Minjun just nodded, like he understood perfectly. Family obligation versus personal desire. It's a very Korean conflict. What about you? I deflected. What do you do, Minjun Kang? His expression shuddered slightly. Import-export, family business, very boring. You're lying now. Touché. He took a sip of his espresso, considering. I run a company that facilitates delicate transactions between parties who might not otherwise be able to work together. We provide services that exist in gray areas of law and commerce. It was the most honest non-answer I'd ever heard. That's vague enough to mean anything. Yes, he agreed. It is. Are you going to push? I should have demanded clarity. Instead, I said, not today. Something in his expression softened. Thank you. We shifted to lighter topics after that, but the conversation never felt shallow. Minjun had a dry wit that caught me off guard, a way of observing the world that was both cynical and oddly hopeful. He made me laugh, really laugh, not the polite sounds I'd learned to make at family dinners. At 6 p.m., my phone buzzed. My mother. Dinner tonight. Don't be late. I have to go, I said reluctantly. Family dinner? How did you know? Your expression. You went from relaxed to tense in seconds. Minjun pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I'd like to see you again. My parents don't have to know, unless you want them to. I thought about my mother's face if I brought home a man like Minjun, someone clearly outside the approved category of suitable matches, meaning second sons of business partners, doctors from good families, lawyers who played golf with my father. They wouldn't approve, I said. I didn't ask if they would approve. I asked if you wanted to see me again. It was the same choice from last night, presented differently. Be safe or take a risk. Be the good daughter or be myself. I gave him my number. Over the next 2 weeks, I learned to lie to my parents. Small lies at first. Study group sessions that were actually coffee dates, gallery visits that included Minjun's quiet presence beside me, late library hours that meant dinner at hole-in-the-wall restaurants where no one from my family's circle would ever venture. I learned that Minjun was an only child whose father had built an empire through means that weren't always legal, that his mother had died when he was 12, cancer that they couldn't afford to treat until it was too late, that he'd learned early that the world didn't care about fairness and that power was the only reliable currency. I took over the family business when my father died 5 years ago, he told me during one of our increasingly frequent meetings. We were walking along the Cheonggyecheon stream, the artificial river that cut through downtown Seoul, lit up at night like a vein of light through the city's heart. He'd built it into something significant but unstable. I spent 3 years consolidating, making alliances, eliminating threats. Eliminating, I repeated. That's a very sanitary word for something that sounds violent. It can be. He didn't apologize or soften it. My world isn't gentle, Yuna. I'm not gentle, despite how I might seem with you. Why are you different with me? He stopped walking, turned to face me. We were alone on this stretch of path, the city sounds muted by the water's constant flow. Because you look at me like I'm a person instead of a threat or an asset, he said simply. And because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want something beyond survival and power. Then he kissed me, there under the lights and the Seoul sky. Slower than the first time, deeper. His hands framed my face with surprising gentleness, and I pressed closer, my arms winding around his neck. This kiss was different, not performance or dare, but genuine desire, genuine connection. When we broke apart, both breathing hard, Minjun rested his forehead against mine. I need to tell you something, he said. My stomach dropped. Okay. My business. It's not just gray area commerce. I run one of Seoul's major organized crime families. We control shipping, construction, some pharmaceutical distribution. We have legitimate fronts, but the foundation is complicated. I should have been shocked, should have pulled away, ended things right there. Instead, pieces clicked into place. The bodyguards, the deference people showed him, the way he moved through the world like he owned it. Korean Mafia, I said. Jopog, he corrected, using the Korean term, though we prefer to think of ourselves as businessmen with flexible ethics. Why are you telling me this? Because I'm falling for you, Yuna, and you deserve to know who I actually am before this goes any further. Before I... He stopped, his jaw tightening. Before I make you a target. A target for who? Everyone. Rival families who would use you as leverage, police who might think you're an informant, your parents who would never approve of someone like me near their perfect daughter. He was giving me an out, I realized, pushing me away while clearly not wanting to. What if I don't want to be protected from you? I asked. Then you're either very brave or very foolish. Can I be both? His laugh was surprised, genuine. Yes. I think you might be. We started walking again, hands joined now, his thumb tracing patterns on my palm. I need you to understand what you'd be choosing. Dating me means security protocols, restricted freedom, constant awareness of threats. It means your perfect life gets complicated in ways you can't anticipate. My perfect life is a cage, I said quietly, a beautiful, suffocating cage. At least with you, I'd be choosing the bars myself. That's not the romantic declaration you think it is. I'm not looking for romance, I lied. I'm looking for something real. He pulled me into a quiet alcove, away from the few other evening walkers, pressed me gently against the stone wall, his body bracketing mine without crowding. I want to be real with you, he said, his voice low. I want to show you parts of myself I haven't shared with anyone. But Yuna, I need you to be certain. Because once we cross this line, once I claim you publicly, there's no going back to invisible. I'm tired of being invisible. You might miss it when you're not. He was right, of course. But I was 23 years old and I'd spent every year of my life being careful, making safe choices, following rules designed to keep me small and manageable and acceptable. Kiss me again, I said, and I'll tell you if I'm certain. He did, and I was. The next month was a master class in double consciousness. By day, I was dutiful Park Yuna, attending classes, having awkward dinners with my parents and the sons of their business partners, men who looked at me like an acquisition they were considering, pretending my life was exactly what they'd designed. By night, I was someone else entirely. Min Jun's woman, though we didn't use that term. I was someone who learned to read the tension in a room, to spot plainclothes security, to understand the complex hierarchy of Korea's underworld through careful observation and whispered explanations. I met his inner circle, men and 2 women who'd grown up with him, who'd survived the violent transition when his father died and rival families had tried to absorb their territory. They were wary of me at first, this outsider from a world of privilege and legality. But Min Jun made it clear that I was under his protection, and in his world, that meant something absolute. She's pretty, one of them, Tae Hyun, Min Jun's second-in-command, said in Korean, clearly not realizing I was fluent. But is she tough enough for this life? Rich girls break easily. She's tougher than she looks, Min Jun replied in the same language. And she's here by choice, not circumstance. That makes a difference. Does she know what you've done? What we've all done? She knows enough. The rest she'll learn. I pretended not to hear, but the conversation stayed with me. What had Min Jun done? I'd seen his gentleness, his intelligence, his carefully controlled violence simmering beneath the surface. But I hadn't seen him in his element, hadn't witnessed what he was capable of when pushed. I got my answer 2 weeks later. We'd gone to a restaurant in Gangnam, one of his legitimate businesses. The food was excellent, the service impeccable. We were laughing over something stupid when 3 men entered. I felt the temperature change before I understood why. Minjun's expression went flat, empty. "Go to the bathroom," he said quietly. "Lock the door. Don't come out until I text you." "What now, Yuna?" I went, heart hammering. From inside the bathroom, I heard raised voices, the crash of something breaking, then silence, terrible and complete. 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "It's safe now." I emerged to find the restaurant exactly as it had been, except for one broken chair being carried away by staff. The 3 men were gone. Minjun sat at our table, his expression calm, but there was blood on his knuckles. "What happened?" I asked, sliding back into my seat. "A disagreement about territory. It's been resolved. Your hand—" "I'm fine. They're fine. Everyone will heal, and the message was delivered." He signaled for the check. "I'm sorry you had to see that." "See what?" "I didn't see anything." His eyes met mine, understanding passing between us. This was the reality of his world, violence that was controlled, sanitized, but no less real for its efficiency. "This is who I am," he said quietly. "If that's changed things—" "It hasn't," I interrupted, though I wasn't entirely sure that was true. "But I need you to be honest with me. About everything. No more protection through ignorance." Over the next hour, he told me, about the legitimate businesses that laundered money from illegal operations, about protection rackets that were actually protection, keeping smaller businesses safe from worse predators for a fee, about the violence that was sometimes necessary to maintain order in a world without legal recourse. "I'm not a good man, Yuna," he finished. "I've hurt people. I've killed when there was no other option. I've made choices that keep me awake at night. But I've also built something, a structure that protects people who have no other protection, that provides order in chaos. You're trying to scare me away. I'm trying to make sure you know the truth." "Then here's my truth," I said, reaching across the table to take his injured hand. "I see who you are. Not just the violence, but the person underneath. The man who sends his men's children to good schools, who makes sure the widows of rivals are provided for, who built a library in the neighborhood where you grew up. You're not just one thing, Minjun." His fingers tightened on mine. "You see what you want to see, and you show me what you want me to see. So we're both selective with truth. Is that enough for you?" I thought about my parents' perfect marriage, built on social expectation and carefully maintained appearances. Thought about the approved suitors I was supposed to choose from, men who saw me as a stepping stone to my father's business connections. "It's more honest than anything else in my life," I said. That night, he took me to his apartment, a penthouse in Hanam-dong that was both fortress and home. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the Han River, the city spreading out like a constellation of possibility. The space was minimalist, expensive, surprisingly lived in. Books in Korean and English, art that was clearly chosen for love rather than investment, a kitchen that showed signs of actual use. "I cook when I'm stressed," he admitted, catching me studying the well-worn cutting board. "It's meditative, repetitive, controllable." "What do you make?" "Kimchi jjigae, usually. My mother's recipe. I've been trying for 15 years to get it exactly right. It's never quite the same." The vulnerability in the admission made my chest tight. "Teach me," I said impulsively. "I want to learn." We spent the next hour in his kitchen, Minjun's body behind mine as he guided my hands through the process of preparing ingredients, building flavors, tasting and adjusting. It was more intimate than a kiss, this sharing of memory and tradition. His hands covering mine, his voice low in my ear, explaining timing and technique and the way his mother used to sing while she cooked. When the stew finally simmered on the stove, filling the apartment with its sharp, comforting scent, Minjun turned me in his arms and kissed me. different from all the kisses before. Slower, deeper, weighted with intention. "Stay," he murmured against my lips. "Tonight. Stay with me." I should have said no. Should have gone home, maintained the fiction of my perfect daughter life. Instead, I nodded. What happened next was tender and intense, careful and consuming. Minjun treated me like I was precious, something rare that might break if handled wrong. But I wasn't fragile, and I showed him, demanding what I wanted, taking pleasure as much as giving it. We learned each other's bodies the way we'd learned each other's minds, through attention, curiosity, genuine desire to understand. Afterward, wrapped in his sheets with the city glittering beyond the windows, I traced the scars on his chest, his back, evidence of a life lived dangerously. "This one?" I asked, fingers ghosting over a puckered mark near his ribs. "Knife fight when I was 19. Learned to always watch hands, never eyes." "This one?" A longer scar across his shoulder blade. "Broken bottle in a bar fight. Learned not to fight in bars." He had so many, a map of violence survived. But there were also freckles, beauty marks, the ordinary geography of a human body. I kissed them all, claiming every part of him. "I'm falling in love with you," I whispered against his skin. His arms tightened around me. "That's dangerous." "Everything about this is dangerous." "Yes." He turned me to face him, his expression serious. "But Yuna, loving me makes you a target. Are you ready for that?" I thought about my careful, controlled life, about being the daughter my parents wanted, living the life they'd designed, about being invisible and safe and slowly disappearing. "I'm ready to be seen," I said, "even if it's dangerous. Especially if it's dangerous." Minjun pulled me closer, his face buried in my hair. "Then we do this properly. I claim you publicly, introduce you to my world, make it clear you're under my protection." "And my parents?" "We'll have to accept it or lose you. Either way, Yuna, you need to choose. Them or this. Both isn't sustainable." He was right, of course. But the thought of disappointing my parents, of breaking the perfect daughter facade I'd maintained for 23 years, felt like dying. "I need time," I said. "Take it, but not too long. They'll use every resource they have to destroy me." "I know. I've been through this before, with other families who didn't approve of their daughters' choices." His jaw tightened. "It never ends well. So what do we do?" He was quiet for a long moment, staring out at the city spread below us. When he spoke, his voice was carefully controlled. "We have 3 options. 1, you walk away now, go back to your perfect life, marry whoever they choose. 2, we go public with our relationship and I use my resources to protect you from the fallout. Or 3, you disappear. I have places, safe houses in other countries, new identities. You'd have to leave everything, your family, your degree, your name, but you'd be free." The options hung between us, each one impossible in different ways. "I can't just disappear," I said. "That would destroy my parents. They're trying to destroy us because they think they're protecting me. Are they wrong?" Minjun turned to face me fully, his expression raw. "Yuna, I've been lying to myself, telling myself I could keep you safe. But the truth is, being with me puts you in constant danger. Your mother is right. I'm not suitable. I'm not safe. And loving me might get you killed." "Don't." I grabbed his jacket, pulling him close. "Don't you dare push me away for my own good. I chose this. I chose you. You chose without knowing the full cost. Then tell me everything." So he did. Standing in that park as the sun set over Seoul, Minjun told me about the rival family that had been pushing into his territory, about escalating tensions and violence, about a war that was brewing, and how dating me had made him vulnerable in ways his enemies would absolutely exploit. "They'll use you to get to me," he said. "Kidnapping, threats, possibly worse. And his voice cracked. I can't lose you, Yuna, but I also can't protect you from everything, not when your own family is against us. I thought about my conversation with my mother, about the investigation my father was launching, about the 2 weeks deadline hanging over us like a blade. So we get ahead of it, I said. I tell my parents the truth before they find out on their own. I make it clear I'm choosing you, and I'm willing to accept the consequences. You'll lose everything. I'll lose my cage. There's a difference. Minjun cupped my face in his hands, his thumbs brushing away tears I hadn't realized were falling. You're sure? Because once you do this, there's no going back. Your parents will likely disown you. Your life as you know it will end. Then it ends, and something new begins. He kissed me, desperate and tender at once. Okay, we do it your way. But Yuna, after you tell them, come to me, stay with me. Let me keep you safe while we figure out the rest. Okay, and if it gets too dangerous, I'm not running away. We face this together, or not at all. His laugh was shaky, almost disbelieving. How did I get this lucky? You didn't. I kissed you, remember? On a dare. Best dare anyone's ever accepted. We stayed in that park until full dark, holding each other, preparing for the war we were about to start. And when Minjun's phone buzzed with an alert from his security team, movement on his properties, possible reconnaissance from rivals, we both knew the timer had started. Tomorrow, I'd face my parents. Tell them the truth. Watch their perfect daughter image shatter. Tonight, I had this moment, this man, this choice I was making with eyes wide open. Take me home, I said, to your place. I don't want to be alone tonight. We drove through Seoul's glittering streets in silence, both of us aware that everything was about to change, that after tomorrow, we'd either be together against the world or destroyed by it. But for tonight, we were just two people who'd found each other in a nightclub on a dare, who'd chosen risk over safety, who were willing to fight for something real even if it cost everything. Minjun's apartment felt different tonight. Not a fortress, but a home. We made dinner together, his mother's kimchi jjigae recipe that was finally, he said, almost right. We talked about small things, future things, what we'd do if we had freedom, where we'd go, who we'd become. I'd take you to my family's ancestral village, Minjun said, in Jola province. It's beautiful, all rice fields and mountains. My grandmother still lives there. She'd love you. Would she approve? She'd say I was punching above my weight, dating a Seoul princess. I'm not a princess. You are to me. Later, in his bed with the city lights painting patterns on the ceiling, Minjun traced lazy patterns on my shoulder. Whatever happens tomorrow, whatever your parents say or do, know that I'm with you, that I'll fight for you, that you're not alone. I know. I turned to face him, and Minjun, I don't regret this, any of it. Even if it all falls apart tomorrow, these weeks with you have been the most real thing in my life. They've been everything for me. We made love again, slower this time, savoring each touch like it might be our last, and maybe it would be. Maybe tomorrow my parents would find a way to destroy this, to pull us apart. Maybe the rival families would make their move. Maybe everything would explode. But tonight we had this, had each other, had the choice we'd both made to risk everything for something real. I fell asleep in his arms, feeling safe and terrified at once, and dreamed of falling off cliffs and discovering I could fly. The morning came too soon. Minjun was already awake, watching me with an expression that was tender and sad at once. Ready? He asked. No, but let's do it anyway. He drove me to my parents' house in Gangnam, the massive home I'd grown up in that had always felt more like a museum than a residence. We sat in the car outside for 5 minutes, neither of us speaking. I'll be here, Minjun finally said, waiting, however long it takes. What if they don't let me leave? Then I'll come get you. But Yuna, Try to make them understand first. Try to leave on good terms if you can. I don't want you to lose your family for me. You're my family now, too. His eyes went bright with emotion, but he didn't speak. Just kissed me once, soft and lingering, then released me. Go. I'll be here. I walked up the familiar stone path, past the perfectly manicured gardens, to the door I'd walked through thousands of times. But this time was different. This time, I wasn't coming home as the good daughter. I was coming home as myself. And whatever happened next, whatever they said or did, I would face it knowing I'd chosen truth over comfort, love over safety, myself over their expectations. The door opened. My mother stood there, her expression already cold with disappointment. So, she said, you're here to tell us you're choosing him. Yes. Then you'd better come in. Your father is waiting. I walked inside, and behind me the door closed with a sound like an ending and a beginning, all at once.